All right, we're going.
Okay. All right, 6 o'clock, I'll call this meeting of the Town Council Land Use Committee to order. Roll call, I see we have Mr. Sibilia, or Councilor Sibilia and Councilor Washington are online. As well
Yes.
as a number of interested residents, and also is President is Councilor Mary McGrattan and Director of Planning Elizabeth Burdick, and also note the Chair of Planning and Zoning Nate Woody. At this point, I'll open the floor to citizens' comments. What I will ask is that not to comment on old business item number 1 on the tax ordinance, because what I intend to do is open the floor during that, when we open that item under old business, to receive comments from residents and farmers on that ordinance. So if anybody has any comments that they would like to make other than item agenda item old business number 1, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, hi, how are you doing? I noticed on the agenda there was something about a bridge on, over a stream. Isn't that a inland wetlands issue rather than a land use issue? I know it's on alleged property, but it wasn't brought up into the inland wetlands agenda, which is tomorrow.
It's been a long item on the agenda, Paul, just as for backup, to see how the town wanted to proceed before they went to inland wetlands for anything.
I see. All right.
We were looking at it from the town, for when and if the town takes over the trail, from the long-term maintenance stand for the trail.
Yeah, it does seem like a tremendous liability issue. But I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you very much.
And there'll also be, just to further on in the discussion, will be an open workshop at the end with the Tri-Town Trail Committee to see if we can establish what the path forward is going to be which would include also wetlands permitting, whatever additional wetland permitting would be required in other actions from the town. Do I hear any other comments from citizens? Hearing none, move forward. Would I like to entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes and the special joint meeting minutes of September 8th and September 16th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Councilor Washington.
Thank you. Second?
Councilor Sibilia.
Any corrections, additions, changes? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Okay, yeah.
Old business, item number 1. So we'll continue discussion. So I'm not sure. I'm probably going to not remove. Actually, I think we do have to remove the item from the table. So I'll make a motion to remove from the table for the committee to discuss an ordinance providing for property tax exemption for farm buildings and additional exemption for farm machinery in the town legend that came in the draft dated September 2nd, 2020. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. So the item is now removed from the table and back on the floor. At this point, in regard to this ordinance, I'm looking for comments from residents and farmers and agricultural interest, so to say, on their opinions on what to do with this ordinance. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. I support this strongly. I've been an advocate of this for a long time. It allows farming to progress as a business rather than as a sport. And we have a lot of folks that are beginning farming and would like to grow into being a farm business. As you know, we have a vineyard. A sprayer, for example, is $20,000. A new tractor is $50,000 to $60,000. When you get into investing in a business, you put a lot up front, and you can buy it on a used basis for certainly, and you can gradually get into things. But as you grow and expand, you need to grow your business, which requires investments. And if there's only 3 vineyards in Ledyard right now, you have a potential to have several more. I don't know if people will do it. There's a lot of hesitancy about regulations Right now, there's over 400 people who are against the ag regulations. It just seems to me that if we can give farming a bit of an ability to expand without having to worry of additional taxes on their equipment or say at a farm building, it would be a very big help to farming. As you know, more than 50% of the property or land in Ledyard is open space or in PA 490, which means that Ledyard is a very beautiful place. Farmers, on one hand, keep the land open with the money in their back pockets, whereas open spaces, tax exempt, is this, is that. Basically, you have it set aside. Farming is not necessarily set aside unless you're in 490. So you'll see. I hope you folks have looked into that, and if I can be of any help with any of that, I would love to step forward and help you out with some understanding in that area. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else like to provide comment or input to the committee on the agricultural ordinance for the tax? Mary, I know you had some questions.
I'll wait till the committees meet again.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. As it is, I do not plan on moving forward on this tonight. But I think this opened up the floor. We'll keep this on the agenda from now, and we'll work on it to see where we can move forward to. Hearing no other comments on that, we'll move to, let me see, item number 2. We will not act on tonight. This is continued discussion. We'll follow up with the workshop at the end of tonight's meeting. Discussion and possible action, periodic review the list of town-owned property and update accordingly for the assignment of administrative control. Liz, how are we doing on that list?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. The list is updated pretty well. I've sat with Mike Morelli. We filled in all of the ones that were missing completely.
Okay.
And then Mr. Morelli submitted a list to me of ones that the Conservation Commission has control of now that they feel they do not need to have control of. He recommends some of them going to cemetery commissions, some of them going to public works, and some going to park and rec. So before I submit you the final draft, I'd like to sit down with the mayor. I'd like to sit down with Steve Maslin and Scott Johnson in one room, sort of go over these one by one. So we haven't been able to do that over the past month due to vacations and whatnot. But if you could kindly put this off till next month, that should give us some time to do that.
Okay. And what I will ask is that when you do submit it, the final, it'd be the original, plus the added new properties that were not on the list, and then a separate list of the recommended changes for administrative control.
Yes, and what I did was I took the original list, highlighted that it was my revisions, and I highlighted each one, so it's easy to see what was changed from what to what.
Okay, very good. Yeah, as long as we can know what was changed, I'm good with that.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on to next item, continued discussion regarding the progress or enforcement of blight regulations. I do see the blight enforcement report is included in tonight's agenda. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if there's anything you want to specifically talk about, Liz, on the blight enforcement.
No, I don't have any questions. I don't have any comments, but if anybody has any questions, I'm, involved with some of them.
Okay. They all look like they're pretty straightforward to me.
Right.
Okay, moving on, continued discussion regarding potential future uses for the Clark Farm located at 1025 Colonel Ledyard Highway. I have no action on that tonight. Are we ready to move on item number 6, Roxanne? Do we have all we need?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to recommend the town council approve the following land use fees. Appendix Ordinance 300 TAC 008, an ordinance establish planning and zoning fee for subdivision, new construction, alteration, and change of use and zoning permit application to town legislature contained in the draft dated September 29, 2020. Appendix ordinance 300 TAC 013, ordinance establishing the Wetlands Water Courses Commission and provided for in the fee structure for applications contained in the draft dated September 29, 2020. In addition, recommend the town council acknowledge revisions to the appendix of ordinance 300 TAC 003, town legend permit fee and inspection fee for building as presented in the draft dated September 29, 2020. Do I hear a second?
Second by Councilor Sibilia.
Thank you, Tony. Any comments? Anybody have any questions?
Mr.
Please,
Chairman, may I speak? I just
Sure.
wanted to let you know, as I stated at the last meeting, the Wetlands Commission asked me to forward along to you what they had agreed upon, but they're meeting tomorrow night just to see the very final.
So I'm going to stop this because we've been waiting for 3 months for them to have their final to say on this.
Well, nothing should be changed. I just wanted to see it,
No, I
all
can't wait.
prettied up.
This was supposed to be with the town, it was supposed to go when the town adopted their budget.
Let me say that I don't anticipate any changes.
Yeah. I've already made the motion. It's on the floor. So unless somebody wants to withdraw the motion, and I don't plan on withdrawing the motion. That was, I think, Elizabeth, not to say anything, not to be, but this was the same comment that was provided at our last meeting.
Right, but at the last meeting,
They wanted to see it one more time and then we're meeting the next night.
Actually,
right, but their meeting was, because of last month was weird. So anyway, it's fine. I don't anticipate them having any adverse comments. Mr. Moggle's here, so he would also remember what they suggested, and the only difference is they haven't seen it in a clean form. But it was sent out to them last week by Deb, and nobody's commented, so.
so if I may say, I support Elizabeth's point of view. I'm not speaking for the entire way in the Wetlands Commission, but our thoughts were to reduce the fees. Elizabeth has done that to a level which we asked her to do, and our meeting is tomorrow night. It's just that our meeting is a day after the land use meeting was the day before, and that seems to be the way it is set up. So it's a conjuncture that's a problem. So certainly, I don't see an issue with it at all. So that's a personal opinion, not representing anyone except myself.
Councilor Sabine, Councilor Washington, what are your takes?
I say move it forward.
If there are no,
Because I was there. They just want to take another look at it, and given the fact that they've seen it, I think with Paul sitting on the commission, I don't see any great change. And
No.
and as it was stated, it was about reducing the cost, and I think they accomplished that.
All right. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Woody.
just for the record, Planning and Zoning did vote on what has been forwarded to you on the zoning side at our last meeting, and we had no problems with it and wanted to see it move forward. Just for the record.
Thank you, Nate. All right, with that, I'll call a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No other new business, old business correction. On the new business, motion to grant a tax abatement to Avalonia Land Conservancy, a nonprofit land care conservation organization for the Atkinson property and the Derlin property in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 12 TAC 81 DD. Do I hear a second?
By Councilor Washington.
All right, so discussion item on this, as included in the agenda packet, there are several properties that are on the tax rolls, in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute. Avalonia is looking for the abatement that we apply every year to those properties. I have no issue with this at all. I think it tallies up to something about $3,400, if I'm correct, Mayor.
Yeah, yes, this was the Atkinson property and the Derlin property down on Long Cove, and when the purchase was finalized, this is just to adjust from the open space categorization that it was, not deeded open space, open land to preserved space.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve land use planning public works committee meeting schedule for the 2021 calendar year. Contained in the draft, as usual, every Monday. Is there any weird ones that we're moving, Roxanne?
Just the one in September, as we did this year, will be on Tuesday due to Labor Day.
Okay, thank you. Okay. With that, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
We need
Aye.
a
Aye.
second.
What was that?
We need a second.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Can I hear a second?
Second by Councilor Sebelia.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is, this is for the transfer to Avalonia. So I'll make a motion to recommend the town council recommend the town of Ledger transfer town-owned land located at 332 Colonel Ledger Highway, Ledger, approximately 100 plus or minus acres, Founders Preserve, to the Avalonia Land Conservancy to remain open to the public for passive recreation and to be protected in perpetuity under the Conservancy's care with the following conditions. The existing 1,800 square foot house and associated land would be subdivided off the land at Avalonia Conservancy's expense. Avalonia Land Conservancy would allow for the continuation of bow hunting on the Founders Preserve property in accordance with Ordinance 100 Tax 018 and the ordinance providing archery hunting on certain town-owned lands. And Avalonia Land Conservancy will pay for all conveyances and fees regarding the transfer of property. So here a second.
Second, Councilor Sebelia.
Any discussion? Mayor, I'll open the floor to you.
Okay, so this is a pretty lengthy discussion that I've had ongoing with Dennis Payne, probably goes back a year or more. The total parcel is 96.52 acres. It was subdivided in, I think it was 2006 as a 36 lot subdivision with about 3,000 linear feet of new road. The road never went in, so no lots were actually ever sold. But there were tax bills for 36 approved building lots. And as you recall, when the end of 2007 came, the market hit the skids. The tax bills accrued pretty dramatically, and ultimately the developer was foreclosed for unpaid taxes. We took the property back, and turns out there's actually a lovely little cape on the property that is now rented till we could do something with the property overall. But there is an earthen dam on it. It supports a 20-acre shallow lake, but the lake is it seems to be a hot spot for ducks and multiple heron rookeries up in the trees in the island, which are really a sight to see if you've never seen them. Basically looks like pterodactyls flying around out there. It's really awesome. There's also a granite sluiceway, and there are multiple stone cairns on the property. And my feeling is that, Avalonia can be much better stewards of the land than I think we can. They are into things like creating habitats for rabbits and potentially ducks and other things. So I kind of like that. They do a great job with maintaining trails and property and posting and things like that. So overall, I think it's a great move to make that transfer. Like I said, it is subject to Avalonia paying for, at their full cost and expense, the re-subdivision. So I think it would be a boundary line adjustment in favor of the town of Ledger at 332 Colonel Ledger to retain that house with some minimum lot size. And Liz, I believe, is that R40 or R60 down there? And sorry, I didn't put you on the spot on that. You're muted.
Yeah, mute, Liz.
I just unmuted her.
Okay.
Okay, It's one or the other.
Okay.
I'll look it up, but it would,
All right, thank you. That narrowed it down. That's good.
it wouldn't be a boundary line adjustment. What we would do is we would do a conservation split.
Okay.
The same thing as like a free split.
Okay.
To cut off, so basically you would be cutting off the back portion of it as a conservation split, and
Right.
the size of the lot with the house on it would be reduced.
Okay. Okay.
And I can, help them along with that process.
Okay, that's fine. And Dennis and I did have the conversation about the fact that the town has been successfully allowing bow hunting on the parcel. And Dennis felt like that was going to be amenable to Avalonia as well. And I think it's an important piece of it because our taxpayers, those that hunt, have enjoyed that opportunity both there and at the Clark Farm. So I'd like to see that continue. Of course, it's subject to an 824 review, public hearing, and town meeting. But I think overall this is a good way to preserve a piece of property that was at one point a 36 lot subdivision on a piece that we really didn't want to have subdivided. And I almost think, and I'm trying to recall from Steve Maslin, but I think he said there was something between 30 and 40 proposed catch basins and stormwater, pieces on their infrastructure. So this is a good move if we can do it. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, it is R60.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Liz. Hearing that, any further discussion? I would like to add also Avalonia has been a great steward of open space and keeping it in a conservancy, so I do support this effort. With that, I'll call a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion, all those opposed? Motion carries. All right. New item number 4. I make a motion to recommend the town council schedule a virtual video conference public hearing date for October 28th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 01, Tac 163E. To receive comment and recommendation on the following. The transfer of town-owned property located at 332 Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, approximately 100 plus or minus acres, Founders Preserve, to the Avalonia Land Conservancy to remain open to the public for passive recreation and to be protected in perpetuity under the Conservancy's care with the following conditions. The existing 1,800 square foot house and associated land would be subdivided off at Avalonia Land Conservancy's expense. Avalonia Land Conservancy would allow for the continuation of bow hunting on Founders Preserve property in accordance with Ordinance 100-018, an ordinance providing for archery hunting on certain town-owned lands. And Avalonia Land Conservancy will pay for all conveyances and fees regarding the transfer of the property. Do I hear a second?
Second, Councilor Sebelia.
Any discussion? This is just setting the public hearing date. Any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, here I go again. Motion to recommend the town council schedule a virtual video conference special town meeting date for October 28th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. to be held in the council chambers 2741.
No, that needs to come out.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Have it.
Yep. Virtual video conference special town meeting date for October 28th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. to consider and discuss and vote upon the following. Shall the town Ledyard transfer town-owned property located at 332 Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, approximately 100 plus or minus acres, Founders Preserve, to the Avalonia Land Conservancy, to remain open to the public for passive recreation and to be protected in perpetuity under the Conservancy's care with the following conditions. The existing 1,800 square foot house and associated land would be subdivided off the land at Avalonia Conservancy's expense. Avalonia Land Conservancy will allow for the continuation of bow hunting on Founders Preserve property in accordance with the 100-018 and the ordinance providing for archery hunting on certain town-owned lands. And Avalonia Land Conservancy will pay all conveyances and fees regarding transfer of the property. Do I hear a second?
Second, Counselor Sebelia.
So this simply discussion, this simply just sets the special town meeting date to transfer town-owned property. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, that ends our regular portion of the meeting. We'll now enter a work session, have discussion with the Tri-Town Trail Committee, for the path forward, which way we're gonna go so we can make all this work. With that, is anybody who would like to open the discussion?
Oh, wait a minute, Karen's trying to talk.
I think Karen trying to, you're still muted, Karen.
She's unmuted.
So there.
I unmuted her.
Okay, thank you for unmuting me. I'd like to introduce, I'm Karen Parkinson from the president of the Tri-Town Trail. I'm glad we have this opportunity to discuss. I'd like to also introduce and recognize Barbara Hill, who's on our board of directors, and Peggy Edwards, who's on our board of directors. Who else is here? B. Reynolds, who's also on our board of directors. And others may join us a little later. Some had some conflicts. Tanisha, can I just read in a statement? And then I know Debbie Vessels is on here too. She wants to say something also. And I think I have assigned some other people to say some words too before we get into a discussion. Before we begin, I would like to thank everyone involved for their support of the Tri-Town Trail, including the board of directors, the many volunteers, the town council, various members of committees and commissioners, and all our visitors to the trail. At least 5 town councilors have made a visit to the trail, along with several commissioners, including inland wetlands. We thank their support. We would like this working session to be supportive, positive in exchange, free from bias and any previous disagreements. We all wish to continue to move forward with the development of the Tri-Town Trail. The community support has been overwhelming. This past weekend, we received donations for 3 park benches at the pumpkin sale event and a donation of $520 worth of lumber for the rivulet crossings was received from Segerson Wood Products in Brooklyn, Connecticut. Donations are coming in steadily. Just one clarification from the last meeting concerning Avalonia on the Tri-Town Trail. The categories as a 501c3 are entirely different. Avalonia is a land conservatory that purchases property to place in conservatory status. The Tri-Town Trail Corporation, per our charter, quote, shall engage only in activities to support the establishment, development, enhancement, and maintenance of a trail from and within Bluff Point Park in the town of Groton, and within that park known as Preston Park in Preston, Connecticut, and other trails that tie into or which are related to this trail and which are open to the public at no charge, unquote. And also, quote, to provide assistance to governmental and not-for-profit organizations with purposes similar to or with activities in furtherance of the purposes of above. So we are not organized to own properties. We have no employees, and we are all volunteers, just to make that clear. There will be no foreseeable future. All funds will come from local donations and private foundations. Sorry, but there's just not going to be any money. Our immediate goals are to complete the building of the rivulet crossings and boardwalks. These are all sacrificial and are in the same category that any other trail organization can build over wetlands without specific permits. The temporary bridge and the 5 10-foot boardwalks at the beginning of the trail will remain until funding is available to construct a permanent bridge. The application for the Stringer Bridge was non-approved. We will be exploring a FRP, that's a fiberglass reinforced plastic bridge in the future when funding becomes available. Number 2, phase 1, which we're working on now, calls for a very complex and expensive bridge crossing at Joe Clark Brook on the Clark Farm. We are currently exploring ways to make a temporary crossing so hikers, runners, and bikers can use the loop. The permanent crossing will be very, very expensive. The town needs to determine the use of the Clark Farm and the kind of bridge that would be needed for that purpose before we proceed on that at all. Phase 3, number 3, phase 1B will be to clear a trail on the Clark Farm, under the power lines, and in the woods, up the ridge to the end of the Clark Farm, upon permission of the town council, which is the owner of the Clark Farm and the owner of the old state hospital field. We work with the owner of the fields. Number 4, phase 2. After all of this, following the master plan, we want to design a trail to Route 214. Various routes will be explored with a spur to Ledyard Center. We want the Tri-Town Trail to have a spur to Ledyard Center, and as we're supposed to connect with major business areas. Following phase 3, after all of that, following the master plan, we're going to design a route to 184 and join the lake on the Groton side while Groton progresses up from Groton. Aside from the trail-specific discussion, we request some time to explore uses of the Clark Farm and the State Farm Field. There is much land sitting idle or becoming victim of invasive species. The Clark Farm acreage to the west of the power lines is an example, as is the entire former State Farm Field. Because this land is part of the Tri-Town Trail path, we are interested in some way to improve it. We have scheduled a meeting with the Ledyard Garden Club to discuss opportunities and development of pollinator fields in these areas. Some research indicates that Eversource may be interested in partnering in this endeavor. Some volunteers have suggested the town look for a way to establish community gardens in these fields. Is it time for an ad hoc committee or a special committee to explore some of these ideas? There are some Department of Agriculture funding available. The Tri-Town Trail is willing to help with this, as it would enhance the trail and also attract volunteers to another agenda. The lengthy list for tonight's discussion. I know Debbie Vessels has something to say. Maybe we'll let Debbie say something.
Hold on one second. My video was kind of cutting out a little bit, so I missed some of it.
Okay.
But I thought you had made I thought I heard you make a comment that you don't need to follow wetlands because you're only putting temporary bridges across brooks.
Our wetlands permit that's already established allows us to do whatever we're doing. So if it doesn't, we need clarification on that.
Well, that won't come from the town council. That will come from wetlands.
Okay.
But as far as the temporary permit that you have for the bridge that's existing, that might be true, but any other crossing would require additional permitting, as far as I'm aware of. But I'm not a member of the inland wetlands. Paul is. I know Mike Washington formerly was. So yeah. I don't know how their rules and regs, but I would assume that in order to do any crossing, you would need to have additional temporary permits to put, or some sort of permit.
Well, we're not putting crossings. These crossings aren't permanent. They're still temporary. They can wash away in a minute. They're not the big ones in the original design that cause real permanent foundations, whatever. They're still in the category of sacrificial. Just like Avalonia can build crossings over their wet spots, and so does Scotia, and so does...
yeah, but they own the land.
Right. Okay.
I think this is Councilor Washington.
Still wetlands.
Having done this on some other pieces of property within the town, what we have done is the Boy Scouts, I'll use the Boy Scouts as an example. They come in and built their timber logs, which is just laying them down across to a wet area. They've brought the plan to the Inland Wetland Commission for review. And more times than not, and I'm not going to speak for the commission, but sometimes it's been allowed as a right of use because it's a recreational side, but it's still a process that you have to go through. It's not an onerous process, but it's still a process.
Okay.
And it was done in 2017.
I think that was done in 2017 when we went before the inlands wetlands.
But my question is the temporary permit, the permit that you currently have, and I don't know what your permit says, but what does it give you permission to do is the question. Does it permission to cross every brook and stream that you want to on your trail, or just the one that you cross now?
I thought the plan showed eight other rivulet crossings, the original plan did, and that was all improved. As far, I wasn't at that inland wetlands meeting, so I don't know. Okay.
And all I'm saying is we just make sure that you're clear what that permit allows.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well, as an example, this is Councilor Washington. If you go back to your original permit, the original application in the meeting, so you should have got something from the Inland Wetland Commission where you came forward with your plan. I voted on that. They may have voted on all 8 rivulets at the same time, which would make sense. You may already have something in your possession that does that, but you may have to reach out to the Inland Wetland Commission if you're not sure,
Okay.
for them to check.
Okay. So I looked up the minutes, and the minutes, I don't know how to go back and do that, but we can talk to inland wetlands.
I would just recommend that you go ask wetlands, the IWWC, what your permit allows you to do before you do anything. It is more of a safety for you and the town that we just ask the question. That's all.
Okay.
I think the first stop might be to meet with Mr. Felice, who's the wetlands officer, because then he can, pull any paperwork that's on the land records and take a look at what's in there, understand if what's being proposed is still what was in that permit. And then once that conversation is had, it make it easier to go to the Wetlands Commission. If additional permitting is needed, it'll make that conversation easier.
Just as an add-on really quick, just remember when the permit was, if you have the permit, when it was provided, and knowing that you have to re-up that permit if you don't complete it within usually the 5-year window, 5 or 7, I'm not sure anymore. But there's a window period on the permit, but it's a simple piece of paper to renew the permit.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I'd also like to make a recommendation, because I think some of the things that there just hasn't been the support that was needed. But I think that the Tri-Town Trail Committee needs to be working either with Conservation Commission or Parks and Rec and Kyle Felice, because Kyle is the wetlands official for us, zoning official, but wetlands too. And I think that could be a good relationship for Tri-Town Trail. He's the guy that can provide them, guidance in the field, because I do believe that the original permit, and I may be mistaken, but I believe the original permit was just for the temporary bridge. So when you go down to the end of the field, the former piece of the Norwich State Hospital, when you go to the end of the field and you cross the stream there, I think the permit was actually just for that. But like I said, I may be mistaken, but I will follow up with Kyle tomorrow myself too and get a copy of the permit. And then I think it might be beneficial if Kyle meets with the Tri-Town Trail Committee on site. And like I said, I'd like to see him work with either Conservation and Parks and Rec, some way to get this thing on the right footing.
No, I agree with that, Mayor. You're absolutely right.
I just have a question, if I may. So Karen, I just wanted to make sure you cut out at one point, but I wanted to make sure I understood what you said. So I think that you said that the Tri-Town Trail Association is not currently interested in owning the easements that the trail is going over. Is that correct?
No.
our charter doesn't allow us to, we're not a 501c that can own property. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't because that's not part of our charter.
So is that something that the association would consider changing to be able to own those easements? And the reason that I ask is that you're not interested in that, so you're not interested in owning the land in any way.
Absolutely not. That's not our mission.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else would like to?
Mr. Chairman, one more quick thing. Just to dovetail on what Nate had just said. I guess my concern with if we were to convey it is what kind of liability change exists in terms of if something were to happen on the trail, Town of Ledyard no longer owns it, Tri-Town Trail owns it. Are they insured to a level that they need to be so that if, God forbid, somebody falls off the bridge and drowns, they're covered? So that may be one of Karen's concerns too.
And I don't disagree. And one of the things I brought up at our last meeting when this got brought up was I'm not sure if the way the easements were written is if we could even convey them.
So just to answer that, the easements are transferable. So we did look into that. And as far as the liability issue, the municipal ownership versus a nonprofit, non-fee use liability is very different. So you have general exemption if you are a land trust or a 501c3 and you don't charge for access to your land. You have no liability unless you have done something purposely to cause danger, whereas the municipality is in a different situation. But if no one's willing to own those easements other than the town, then some of those I guess are moot concerns.
Just as a point of clarification, the Tri-Town Trail encompasses Groton, Preston, and Ledyard. It's a concept. All towns are going to be involved. It's not something we own. The trail belongs to everyone. It'll belong to Groton. The part goes through Groton. The part goes through Ledyard. Where it's Ledyard properly, it will belong to Ledyard. If we ever get into Groton Utilities, that'll belong to Groton Utilities. We are not interested in owning. We're not the owners of the Tri-Town Trail at all. All we are the builders and the fundraisers and the negotiators and the enablers. We're not an owner of the Tri-Town Trail. The airline trail isn't owned by the airline, any particular, it's owned by multiple organizations. So no, we're not interested in owning the Tri-Town Trail. That's not our mission.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Deborah, you wanted to speak?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Deborah Vessels, and I speak on behalf of my husband and myself. My husband is Dave Vessels. We've resided in Ledyard since childhood. We've lived at the north end of Colonel Ledyard Highway for over 40 years. Back in 1987, we were involved in protecting from development what was known as, and still is known as, the Clark Farm. My father, actually, who's deceased, garnered over 1,200 signatures in 2 days opposing a zone change of the property that would have allowed condos and apartments. Neighbor and attorney Jackson King, who sadly is no longer with us, assisted us with the opposition of the zone change. As some of you may or may not know, the property has quite a history over the last 30 plus years, with sale to a developer who went bankrupt, and then the bank that took over the property did the same. It was sold at auction to the Mashantucket Pequot tribe and then traded with the town for Indian Town Park. As proponents of the outdoors and things nature-oriented, it would be of interest to us to know that know what the plans are for the property known as the Clark Farm. I understand it's under the jurisdiction of the town council. I think it would behoove all of us to know what the plans are for the Clark Farm. We have been one of the many hikers who have enjoyed the new segment of the Tri-Town Trail, which runs on the property. It would be our wish and our desire that any use of the property would encourage appreciation of nature hiking, and providing habitat for birds, insects, and animals. In these perilous times of COVID-19, nature has been a godsend to many of us. Again, our question to the town is, what are the plans for the use of this property? And we would like to go on record of supporting the Tri-Town Trail and doing whatever we can to promote nature and the outdoors to this generation and generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I just point out, I'm going to make this, because since it's been brought up, right now, there is currently no plans that the council has for the town, for the Clark Farm property or the State Farm property. The only active use we've had in recent time was leasing the property to a farmer. He has not leased it in probably a couple of years now, but that was the only active thing that was going on in either one of those two properties. There is no proposal coming anywhere to the town that I'm aware of to do anything with those pieces of property. The only thing that it came up with a possible discussion was maybe the Legend Fair Association being able to lease the State Farm, but that kind of fell through with, and they're moving on to a different direction from what I've been told. But currently, the town council has no plans other than to keep it as open space.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the info.
And anybody else like to speak?
I think we have some other members that would like to speak, but back to what Mayor Fred said about who we should work with. We've asked that question many times. We think we're most appropriate to work with under Parks and Recs. That's the way it is in Groton. If we were under our Ledyard Parks and Recs, then we'd be easy to negotiate an interrelationship with Groton Parks and Recs as we connect both ends of the trail. It makes the most common sense. I know there's been objections to us joining with Parks and Recs, but I think all our members would like that to happen. So we would, for some reason, the Tri-Town Trail has some misconceived, other people have a misconceived notion about us. So if we were under a legitimate town department, it would legitimize us as well, and maybe we'd avoid some of this conflict.
So to that end, I am happy to pick up the phone with Parks and Recs tomorrow and find a way. And we did speak to Scott Johnson, the director, quite a while ago about it, but it didn't really go anywhere. But I think I'm going to go ahead and push that with them tomorrow. I do think it's important to be working with not only staff, but with a town committee or commission. I think it would be helpful, and I agree that I think Parks and Recs is a great fit. So I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. The only thing that this came up before to us, Mayor, and the reason why we didn't go that route is because we felt that Parks and Recs didn't have any experience with land use matters, going through the wetlands permitting and everything else. That's why we advised the Tri-Town Trail to work with the planning director in the planning office.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest, because that relationship has been a bit unsteady, I'm going to ask that Kyle Felice step in instead to work with the Tri-Town Trail.
Thank you.
And I also have no objection with the Parks and Recs getting involved either. So, like I said, the objection, there wasn't an objection to work with Parks and Recs, but since Parks and Recs doesn't deal with the land use issues as much, we thought it would be better if they worked directly with staff. But to your point, I think working both ways with staff and with the Parks and Recs might be a better fit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if Bea or Peggy have anything to say, or Barbara. Please speak up. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So the Tri-Town Trails Association has been trying to monitor the use of the trail, and I know we've seen increased activity. So we're actually looking into, there's a Connecticut Trails census who will set up boxes that have infrared counters in them. And there's one actually at the south end in Groton along the trolley trail that connects in to the Tri-Town Trail proposal
along Depot Road. So we're hoping if we can get a counter at the north end and the south end, we'll have some better idea of usage. But I can give you a few statistics because it's always nice to have numbers. On September 20th, we had a posting on the Ledger Community Resource and we had 70 likes. Our Facebook has over 1,000 followers. And last Saturday, I stopped by at 2:15 and I had to back my car up because 3 cars were coming in. There were 8 people walking, 2 people walking across from Preston Park to walk down to the brook. And that was just in a 15-minute period of time. So I think we're seeing that there's a tremendous amount of use and interest in the trail. And I'm really happy to hear about having some direction and being able to work with a town committee or a commission, because it would be nice to have a little bit more support from the town and know what thoughts are for the various town entities, because the interest is there. We are getting tremendous amount of interest and use. People even saying they're seeing people, trying to park at the Red Barn at the south end by the Clark Farm. So the use is there, the interest is there, and we really would like the support of the town. Thank you.
The Trail Census is a great program. I'm good friends with the woman who runs that program. If Karen or B send me an email, I can forward on that contact for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else?
Yeah. Or Dave, I don't know if anybody else has a comment to say. Okay. All right. So I guess our next move is wait for Mayor Fred to talk to Parks and Recs and see if we have to go before the Parks and Recs Commission or however we work some sort of a working relationship. We can become under Parks and Recs. We'll work with Kyle Felice and Inland Wetlands and see what we can figure out with that. I know I got the number of it, but I've never seen the permit. So, and Chad Frost was going to join us, but he had another meeting. I guess he hasn't on here yet. He probably has knowledge of that permit also. And we'll get clarification on that. Where our next move for the trail was to start some rivulet crossings. We can hold off until we get clarification on that because that will make them a lot safer. I don't know if Mayor Fred has been up there on the trail or any of the rest. I know some of I really encourage you all to get up there and take a walk. It's really, really very, very nice. We just got 3 benches donated and we named them. Now we have 4 benches and they're named Reflection, Serenity, Tranquility, and Solitude. And you will stop along the trail. It has an exceptional ambience to it that all people talk about. You get up there, it's really an exceptional ambience. I really encourage you all to get up, way up on the trail. I'm turning 81 shortly and I can hike it, so I think anybody else can too. So that's what our goal will be. Do we need to schedule another meeting with land use? Where do we go from here?
I don't think you need to schedule another meeting unless you just want to provide an update. And if we do, just let Roxanne know, we'll get added to the agenda.
Yeah. And I guess Kyle could answer the question if we can put something more substantial over the Joe Clark Brook down by the Clark Farm, because that's really a challenging place.
No, and I understand, like I said, the comment I was just wanted to make sure is that the Tri-Town Trail isn't overextending the permit. Because like yourself, I don't know what the permit says. I haven't seen the permit, but I just want to make sure we're not doing something outside what is currently allowed. That's all.
Sure.
And as like Washington alluded to, it's not an onerous process to get wetlands to do for a temporary bridge to cross over.
I think we can get clarification on that before the weekend, because I have a crew lined up to build something this week.
Absolutely. My intention is to get a copy of the permit tomorrow morning, have the conversation with Scott Johnson and Parks and Recs, and speak to Kyle all tomorrow. So that should not be a problem, and I can get a copy of that to you, Karen.
Okay, I'm available anytime tomorrow. Okay,
Can I say something?
yeah.
This is Keith Parkinson, Karen's husband. I live at 55 Rose Hill Road, Leonard. In discussions with Chad, who made the presentation to the Inland Wetlands Commission, that's Chad Frost. Chad said that the permit, and I myself, like Karen, I have not seen the permit, but Chad has said the permit covers the work that we have done. We haven't done anything that is outside of that, and that we are really working hard or diligently to preserve the wetlands and care for the wetlands. And I would really like to see it come to fruition with your assistance, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Any other input?
Yes, this is Keith Parkinson again. The state farmland has a large amount of invasive species that's come to our attention, some of which I didn't know were invasive, and I've been told that they are. We would like to take an assist in removing those invasive plants and trees and shrubs. Additionally, because both the Clark Farm and the State Farm land are really scenic vistas, if you will, and Nate suggested paths around that, I'd like permission to mow around the two properties on the borders. And I would be avoiding any wetlands. It would be strictly providing access for people to have recreation on town land.
So just to clarify, so there is on the state, there is a farm road that runs around the perimeter of much of that property. And the first time I went to the Tri-Town Trail, I actually went the wrong way. And so I walked that road instead of going toward the Tri-Town Trail. And so it is a very nice pathway around the perimeter of that property. And it's an existing farm road. That's what I was speaking of, just for clarification. And I do think it's a very nice walking area to, distance, things like that.
Yeah, I guess, Nate, I know what you're talking about, and I rode my tractor, but didn't do any mowing down that path and around. I would just like to continue the loop around the property. I think it'd be enjoyable for people.
I don't know if anybody else, the committee has any issues with that, but I personally don't have a problem with mowing the farm road.
No.
I think the only issue that you might want to look into is the farm road doesn't extend along the west side of the property. So I don't know if it connects up there, and I'm just being honest. I don't. Right now, it doesn't seem to. I just don't know.
Right.
There are signs that delineate the private property that's owned by the David Gear Land Conservancy and Trust under the supervision of a lawyer or an attorney in Norwich. We wouldn't go there.
Two other quick little things. We have a map of the Tri-Town Trail now for on the two properties. Do we have permission to share that with the Conservation Commission so they can put those on the map sites? And another item was that we've discovered dead trees that are in danger, people walking on the trail on the easements. Do we have permission to take down dead trees on the easements? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that either. Mayor, do you know?
No, I think we'd have to look at the easement itself and see what language is in there in terms of cutting anything of size. Right. Cutting the brush for the trail was one thing, but if we get into cutting trees, even if they're dead, I think we still need to make sure that we're clear on that.
Okay, we need to check on that because there's two massive dead trees that we've cut down, some that were falling down, but there's two that need to be taken down. So, all right.
You may require permission of the property owners and.
Okay. Yep.
Be delighted to talk to him.
Yep.
Because that would be outside of the town's jurisdiction to give permission to go cut down trees on private property, even though it is in the easement.
Okay.
Is that something that Public Works needs to do, or can Public Works grant permission for someone else to do chainsaw work there?
Yeah, I think where they're talking about, they're not on town-owned property.
Oh, they're outside.
They're outside the town boundary.
Yeah. So it's on the easement. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's outside the easement.
Inside, right on the trail, on the easement.
Oh, okay. It's in the easement area. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I'll check with Public Works. I don't know if they're going to have the time to get out there and cut trees, but I will find out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What was the other thing, Karen? Besides the trees?
Giving the map to the Conservation Commission. I know the Conservation Commission is developing trail maps for the whole town of Ledyard. We're ready to give that map to them to add to it. I don't know if we have the town council has to approve the map first. I don't know how that happens.
The maps, the conservation trail maps don't come to the town council for approval.
Okay, all right. There, I see Chad's there. Maybe he can answer some of the inland wetlands permit question we had.
Hey, Mary, go ahead. Hold on. Mary, you're on mute, Mary.
Yeah.
Mary, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Okay. On the Conservation Commission maps, there's 13 maps or trails, but those trails are under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. They're not necessarily adding to it.
Okay. All right. We'll put them on Hike Ledyard then.
Okay.
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 Hey, Chad, one question maybe you can answer. The wetlands permit that allowed for cross and recross on the brooks, does that include only the existing bridge, or does that encompass what's on the trail all the way to the Clark farm?
Are you asking about the bridge and all the rivulets, all the other wetland crossings?
More across the recrossing Joe Clark Brick back onto the Clark farm.
Yeah, so the wetland permit that we received, or the town received from the Wetlands Commission, was for all wetland crossings. It was for end-to-end, both bridges, all the rivulets crossings, as well as even the areas, of wetlands that are on the hills and in the lower areas. We quantified every square inch of wetland, and that was part of the application.
It would just want to make sure, the reason why I just want to make sure that the Tri-Town Trail wasn't doing work that may have been outside the approved permit. That's all.
From my perspective, as the one who presented it to the commission, we definitely did the entire length. If you look back at the documents and the square footage, it encompasses 100% of the finished approved trail, and that included all grading areas, for a 10-foot wide trail. We did let them know that it would be done progressively over time, meaning that we would do a little bit now, and it would start as a footpath, just cleared pathway, and eventually develop to a full-blown trail if and when the money presents itself. And so that was part of what we had the discussion with them as well. So from my perspective, from what I've seen of what they're doing, I think it's within their permit rights. But I'm sure we could go back and pull all of the documentation and double check. But that's how I presented it, because that's, at the time, we knew we had a wetlands permit that'd only be good for 5 years. We didn't know how fast the money would be coming afterwards for full construction. So we wanted to be open and honest with the Wetlands Commission, as well as pretty much all the neighbors and the public. We've kind of said that same thing the whole time, that it's going to be a progression as we go.
Yeah, now, it was just a point, just like I said, just wanted to clarify that the permit didn't allow farther than where you've already progressed to, and the mayor's going to look into it tomorrow, sure. But it was just a question, because none of us here presently know what the permit said.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know for a fact that we quantified every single square foot of wetland from one end to the other end of the total disturbed area, including laydown spaces and extra work area and stuff like that within any wetland area that we had flagged as a wetland. And as you can see on the plans, it was very extensively flagged wetlands. So.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
This is Keith Parkinson again. In discussions with Chad, he informed me and us that all the plans that had been submitted to the commission, the wetlands, that we've been following that information very diligently, even down to we have a record of any volunteer that has been participating in clearing the trail. Additionally, we follow the guidance to protect the wetlands that appears on the first page. When you extract it and put it on typewritten format, it's 14 pages in Microsoft Word, and we follow that. We look at the environmental aspects. We've put down burlap to prevent erosion in the wetland areas. We are not causing problems, and I think we are totally within our permit, but we will get it confirmed. Appreciate it, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else like to weigh in? Tony or Mike?
No, I think, everybody's in support of the trail. And I think it's something we can get done. I think it's just going to take a little effort. That the primary issue that I see having is how are we going to get across Clark Brook? But looking back on all the trails I've ever taken in the Appalachians and stuff, some of the temporary bridges are pretty rustic, and I'm not sure what the requirement is for an ADA aspect of that. So I don't know if you can get away with that level of rustic bridge for that initial crossing at Clark Brook. But outside of that, I think all the rivets and stuff will be quick to do. But I think it's I like it. I haven't been out there yet because I'm waiting for my elbow to kind of finish healing so I can actually move something. That's it.
Thanks, Mike.
Tony, anything you'd like to add?
Having been out there, it is a beautiful piece of property. I guess my only concern is the bridge that they've already constructed and built on town property. Has anybody from the town actually looked at that? As far as code enforcement, et cetera. I mean, I think it's great, but I'm not a building official.
I don't believe so at this point.
Does that open the town up to liability should something happen, given that nobody from our professional staff has even looked at this?
Yeah, that could be an issue. That's why the concept of the permits, more than the concept, the permits need to be followed in terms of the construction, not just of that first bridge. The first bridge crosses the brook, but then the more substantial second one. The second one, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did the Army Corps already do the borings out there, Chad? You're muted.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you. The Army Corps didn't do the borings, but we did have a structural engineer go out and they did borings at both bridge crossings. Again, that was in anticipation of knowing at some point we'd need an engineer to design the full-on engineered structure for both crossings. What I will say is that in order to build a fully compliant ADA accessible bridge, it has to meet Army Corps standards because we're in a floodway. The rest of the bridges, and that's only if we receive federal funds for the construction of the project. Federal funds and the federal transportation money is what triggers the ADA type component. We designed the whole Tri-Town Trail to meet not truly the ADA because that doesn't have to apply to outside spaces, but it's the National Forest Association standards for accessibility, which allows for a little bit more leniency than ADA does. But that's how the whole thing was designed, so that if the town received federal money to be able to build the whole thing, it could be compliant with those standards. But there are national forest standards for bridge crossings. And that was included in some of the details that we provided to the town. And it goes everything from a simple log stringer bridge, which you see in a lot of, very rustic parks, right? Where you just take a tree that's close by and you cut it down, and they give you the dimensions of, how big around and what type of species and how long it can carry. So a lot of times that's the standards that we apply to, what I'll call rustic bridges out in the woods. And I would fully support that. It's probably worth having the building inspector, double check what was done. If it was done to meet the code for a deck support, then it should definitely, handle crossing the small stream. And I know that they've also had the guidelines for that national park standards for bridge stringers. And Keith asked a lot of questions about it when they were looking at it, trying to figure out to make sure it was up to par from a structural perspective. And like I've always said, we can't design it, and I can't have one of our structural engineers design it unless it meets all those standards for Army Corps. And that's just a long, expensive process that the town didn't have money for by the time we finished up our work. So that's why I think they're going forward with the temporary nature.
That being said, I get the ADA component. I'm versed in ADA. My concern is, has anybody from the town even looked at the railing system on the bridge? And I'm not saying that the bridge is not sufficient. It's absolutely beautiful. But I certainly am not qualified enough to say, you know what, you should add an extra railing an extra upright to a railing, or you have to meet these certain qualifications. My concern is we've got a structure sitting on town property that the town hasn't looked at or vetted.
Town engineer, go look at it.
I would suggest you treat it just like any other structure. That the town has an inspector for a reason, and she should be able to go out there and look at what was built, and very quickly with quick span tables be able to determine, that it meets the requirements from a building perspective.
Yeah, but I think the next question is, what permit was the bridge built under? Randy's not going to go out and inspect something unless he has a permit to go inspect under.
You see where I'm coming from. It's been very clear from the Tri-Town folks, they don't want to own the easement. Well, now we have a structure on the town's easement that the town hasn't been involved in. And again, I'm not saying it's not a beautiful job. I think it's very impressive. But from the town's liability point of view, somebody better take a look at that.
So I'll ask the Tri-Town Trail, what permit was used to build the bridge? Not the wetlands permit to provide that allowed you to cross. What was the permit that was filed with the town to build the bridge?
There was no permit filed with the town to build the bridge. It was put in temporary when we applied for putting in the 3-log stringer bridge as used on trails by the Department of Agriculture.
I think I'm going to tell the Tri-Town Trail, I'm thinking you need to go talk to the building official and apply for a building permit so that they can inspect the bridge.
A building permit.
Yep.
I'll be delighted to do that. And do I have to address the building inspector by Zoom, or can I come in the town hall to see him?
There.
Town hall is open from 7:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. So Keith, I recommend if you're going to come in earlier in the morning before he starts going out for inspections.
I understand, and I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I recognize it's a temporary bridge, but there was no permit that was filed to go actually build the bridge.
That's correct. And I understand that was probably wrong, and we'll make it right.
We built it last December, and everybody in town walked across it last December. Nobody questioned it at that point. So
other than Councilor Washington,
who recommend we put rails on it, so we did that.
Right. Yeah. But I think right now it's probably that we're just realizing that Councilor Zerilli has made a point, is that have the town gone out and inspected the bridge and nobody even thought about it.
Sure.
But we all talked about the wetlands permit. We completely forgot about the building permit.
Okay.
Sure.
Please understand, I'm speaking to the town's potential liability. It has nothing to do with your efforts.
Right.
I've been on the bridge. I think it's great. But just as a business owner, I worry about my liability all the time. And with the discussion where you're very clear you're not going to take possession of that easement, that means the town owns that bridge until the permanent one goes in.
Yeah.
Just on the construction of a temporary structure, not to beat a dead horse over here. This is Councilor Washington. Even though it is a temporary structure, it still goes through the general process as any other structure because it takes on personnel, people being on top of it. So it really boils down to taking the plans that came with that it was based off of and providing that to the building inspector as part of asking for the permit. Because at least that way they know someone has done the design side. He knows what he's going to go look at to see that it qualifies. Now, if there hasn't been a calculation done, and if there's got to be some level of calculation done, even if it's on the most minimal level, to just demonstrate that it can take so many pounds per square foot, so much dead load, yada yada yada, some railing detailing that goes on there. But that's also a function of how far above the ground you are. If you're not that far above the ground, then the railing isn't an issue. But if you got a 3 foot drop off, then it falls under requirements to have railing. So if the railing goes in because you have a large drop off or anything that's greater than say 3 or 4 steps, then there's got to be a railing that goes in. So
I'm not concerned with the railings because I think we investigated that and we put in ADA curbs and things like that on the bridge. But I'll take and work with the town and the town engineer to ensure that it's proper.
it'd be relatively simple.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? So I'll ask Karen, and do you think you got the information you need to move forward?
I think so.
I know it's been a long process trying to get through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We waited so long for this work session that
Right.
I'm sorry we can't do it in person, but I think this has been very, very helpful. I know Mayor's going to do some things for us, and Keith's going to follow up. And if we can work under Parks and Rec, that will help all of us, so that we won't feel like we're just sort of hanging out here in no man's land trying to do something, and we don't have. It would be much nicer to be grounded with Parks and Rec. Hope that can happen quickly.
Right. Nobody from the town wants this to fail. I think everybody in the town council and are interested in seeing this succeed. I think everybody in the town council will be extremely happy if we get the permit to cross through to get all the way from Preston to Groton, as the Tri-Town Trail has been trying to do for the last number of years. I know, Dave, when you started this first discussion with the town council a number of years ago, everybody saw this as a great thing to go move forward. But we just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. That's all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree. We want to do it right. We want, COVID really interrupted a lot of things for us all. So, but it's been great to have all this wealth of Kevin DiFilippo's online, and he has all the fire company, Ledyard Fire Company guys out there working, and they've been working their tails off, and all our volunteers have. It's just amazing the wealth of volunteers we've had. So I want to hopefully we keep this momentum and keep it going, because, we put out a call for volunteers and they just come out of the woodwork.
That's good. That's good. Anything else like that? Anything? All right. Well, at that point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second by Councilor Sibilia.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned without objection. Thank you, everyone, for your inputs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Get off of it.
Mm-hmm.